It's not very often that a Goemon-like game hits the console market, but that's exactly what happened with the release of Mameda no Bakeru on the Switch. With the original franchise buried on Konami's shelves somewhere, Good Feel is giving gamers pretty much what the Goemon series would offer, minus the franchise's name. It also makes sense too, considering that Good Feel is helmed by Etsunobu Ebisu, who worked at Konami for years and was the producer of the Goemon series during his tenure at the company. Now, has Ebisu's familiarity with the series and the skills of the team at Good Feel brought back the Japanese hero to the next generation? Well, that's exactly what we're here to talk about in this review. Danny from the Famicast here. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications. Sound off in the comments down below, and we may read it out in our bi-weekly show called the Famicast. Today, though, we're taking a look at the modern-day Goemon / mystical ninja-like game, Mameda no Bakeru, in this review. Otogi Katsugeki Mameda no Bakeru, Oracle Saitoro no Sainan, or Mameda no Bakeru for short, puts players into the role of the Tanuki Bakeru. Taking the form of a young man, Bakeru teams up with Japanese folk heroes to take out the evil Omatsuri Gundan, or the Festival Corps, as they try to cause problems all over Japan. Now, this game offers over 50 stages featuring on-foot missions, vehicle-based missions, and also giant robots. It's pretty simplistic, and, it's kind of a somewhat silly story, but that is the general gist of it here. Mameda no Bakeru is a 3D action game that puts players in a variety of small, bite-sized stages. Now, these last anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes each. Combat's here pretty easy to grasp too. Bakeru can attack foes with his taiko drumsticks with L or R, he can dodge with Y, jump with B, and block with ZR. The block can also be used to deflect projectiles back at enemies. Now, a charge attack is also available by holding L or R, or both at the same time, to deliver a more powerful attack. This is also necessary to unearth lanterns to make progress in the stages. A little more on that later. A transformation mechanic is introduced early on in the game that can be enabled by holding ZL and the corresponding button for the transformation. Now, 4 are available that give Bakeru the ability to shrink, shoot projectiles, use fishing lines, kind of like a whip, and also just kind of a more beefed up version of himself as well. Now, these cannot be used indefinitely. There is a gauge and small colorful emblems that need to be collected for continued usage. Now, the game's pretty generous about scattering these about the stages, so it's really not that much of a problem to get to use these once you get going. Now, these transformations are obtained by fighting Japanese folk heroes such as Momotaro, Kintaro, and Urashima Taro. All of these can prove pretty useful throughout the adventure and are pretty well balanced, for the most part. The shrinking mechanic allows Bakeru to enter small doors or cracks, but he's unable to attack. The Kintaro armor adds more potency to his attacks, but it's a little bit slow. The fishing lines are great to take out groups of enemies at a distance, but don't work so well against single foes. And the projectiles from Momotaro are super powerful and are great in almost any situation. However, Bakeru is literally on roller skates, which makes it a little bit tricky to control. The gameplay loop here is pretty simple, but I think it feels pretty good. Players are placed in 3D stages and have to make their way to a huge towering taiko drum. When first starting the stage, this is locked. Unlocking this requires players to find and destroy these colorful lanterns that are basically spread throughout the stage. Now, these are sometimes hidden or protected by enemies, or sometimes they're just in plain sight. There are usually more than 3 of these too, so players shouldn't have a hard time unlocking that taiko drum at the end of the stage. All in all, these stages usually can last anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes or something like that. Now, on top of the action, most stages also offer some platforming elements, but it's never really too complicated or too stressful. Although on-foot missions make up a majority of Mameda no Bakeru, 2 other gameplay styles are also on offer: vehicles and the ability to control and fight with a giant robot. Now, the vehicular stages put players in either a car, boat, snowmobile, or in the air. Now, while on the ground or water or the snow, you can accelerate with A, brake with B, drift with L or R, or perform tricks by pressing both L and R simultaneously when you're going off of things like ramps. Now, the fight sections are quite a bit different and are pretty similar to what you might find in a Star Fox game. Now, you can shoot with L or R, or both. You can roll with Y, shoot bombs with ZL. You have 3 of these shots per stage. And there's a laser beam with limited use that you can use with ZR. Now, all of these stage types are quite a bit shorter than the on-foot sections, typically lasting around 5 minutes or less or so. Now, I think they're pretty simple, but they provide a break from the regular on-foot missions, and I think it just kind of adds a good mix to the overall game. Now, the giant robot sections are limited to boss fights and are super epic and enjoyable. Now, these work like a mix of a fighting and a boxing game. Now, players punch with L or R, block with ZR, and you can dodge and boost with Y. And also you can release a powerful flurry of attacks once charged with ZL. Now, like the other vehicular levels, these are also pretty short, but feel great. I think the robot is a little bit cumbersome to control, but when you're connecting with one of these lumbering punches, man, that feels really, really satisfying. Now, undoubtedly, this aspect of the gameplay is definitely one of the most exciting, eye-catching parts of the game. Now, traversing the overworld of Japan in Mameda no Bakeru is pretty simple. Now, when first starting out, you'll be on foot. However, not too long into the game, you'll gain access to an airship, which is basically like a giant kettle. Now, this allows players to explore the country from the air. Now, not only this, but they can also use a warp feature to go to different parts of the country a lot more quickly. Now, the ship can also be upgraded to increase the health, power, and strength of the robot, so that's pretty cool. Now, one thing you need to know before going into this game. Now, there is no lock-on mechanic for the attacks. Now, while this sometimes can make combat a bit intense, this seems to be a very deliberate choice. Now, you typically aren't swarmed by enemies here, and even if you are, it's usually by the ones that don't really pose too much of a threat. Now, while the lack of lock-on is the case for a majority of the transformations and also just regular mode Bakeru, the Momotaro shooting form has an auto-locking system for enemies when they're in range. Now, this is pretty useful and sometimes a little bit overpowered when taking out some of the more powerful enemies in the game. And speaking of enemies, Mameda no Bakeru ramps up at a pretty generous pace here. Now, enemies in the early stages are pretty simple and don't have as many attacks at their disposal, but as you progress, you will encounter stronger foes and just enemies with projectiles and more. Now, thankfully, you have an opportunity to give Bakeru some enhancements along the way via a traveling Tanuki sales named Uriko. Now, there is no hub world or like hub town or anything like that you might have found in like a Goemon game, but Uriko is basically in every single stage multiple times and offers players one-time use items and also items that can be stocked and used at your leisure. Now, these range from increasing your speed and power to other things like bombs that can take out numerous enemies on screen. A permanent health upgrade is also available. There are a few of these available. They get more and more expensive as you play, but yeah, I think it's definitely beneficial to get those. Now, for these one-time use items, these are assigned to the D-pad, while the rest will just take effect immediately. Now, I didn't make too much use of these outside of like the power and the speed thing that you can do at the beginning of each stage, but some of the items here, I think they can be pretty useful. Now, each stage is home to a number of hidden items in the form of souvenirs and something called Unshiku no Unshiku. Now, the souvenirs are all based on things that can actually be found in the prefectures, in stylized form, or areas where the missions are taking place. Now, 3 of these are located in each stage and are locked away in capsules that need to be broken. Now, on top of this, 5 little golden poos, yes, poo, are hidden in various parts of each stage. Now, this is a character named Unshiku, with unchi kind of being a word that kids refer to poop as here in Japan. And it's unshiku no unshiku. Now, unshiku also means kind of like a detailed knowledge of some kind of a topic as well. So it's kind of like a play on words here. So this wacky character provides players with little factoids about Japan and other random tidbits of information. Now, these are usually pretty funny or interesting and are clearly aimed at Japanese kids. Now, additionally, Tanuki, at some point in the game, are also hiding throughout the stages. Finding these allows for more upgrades to your airship. Now, one thing I wanted just to address here too, now the camera here, I think it's very serviceable throughout most of the experience, but it does come with a limitation. You're not able to actually position the camera really low behind Bakeru. I mean, this usually isn't a problem. However, there might be some times when you're trying just to get a better look at your surroundings, or you're just sizing up what's on offer in the level. Now, additionally, although Mameda no Bakeru is a 3D game, don't go into the experience thinking this is like a completely open 3D game. Invisible and visible boundaries limit where you can go. Now, this usually isn't a big deal. However, some of these are not really so clear. Now, for example, some areas might have like some kind of a thing to prevent you from falling to your death, while others, which appear somewhat similar or almost identical, don't. Now, since dying only takes some money and starts you back at your last checkpoint, it's not really a huge deal, but it is a little bit annoying. Traveling around the whole country of Japan in this adventure gives players a look at some really cool, stylized version of real-life areas around the country. I mean, you know, it's very stylized. Now, not only this, but the enemy design here it's pretty cool, with a great focus on this Japanese festival aesthetic. The stages here are pretty varied too, and really are a visual treat. Character models and the environments are somewhat simple, but I think that enables the game to run at a relatively consistent frame rate, typically around 60 frames a second. Now, while generally pretty stable, there are some instances of the game chugging a little bit, but very rarely did I find this impact the gameplay, but it will definitely be noticeable to some. Now, on top of the fantastic art design, audio is also top-notch, featuring themes with Japanese instruments and the occasional one-liners from Bakeru. There is some voice acting in the game, in cutscenes, but by and large, most of what you'll find here is text-based. Being so reliant on these Japanese tropes and folklore and stuff like that, Mameda no Bakeru might be a little bit intimidating for those that aren't familiar with the Japanese language. Now, although there is a lot of text in the game, and some voice acting like I mentioned, knowing how the gameplay works will likely be enough for most people. Now, of course, you'll be missing out on the story and the tidbits of information provided by, you know, the Golden Poo, and I think translation apps might have a little bit of a hard time giving accurate translations of some of the more colloquial Japanese here. You know, simply put, you won't get the full experience of the game, but I think you can still get a hearty amount of enjoyment out of this, even without knowing Japanese. Mameda no Bakeru really does feel like a modern 3D Goemon game in every sense of the phrase. The aesthetic is absolutely fantastic, and those who are interested in or love Japanese culture will find a lot to like in this game. Now, the available playstyles here are pretty fun, however the camera can be somewhat a slight hindrance on the gameplay, and the frame rate does have some issues. Now, not only that, but the amount of Japanese might turn off some players from taking the plunge. Still, if you're looking for a fun, old-school Goemon-like game with a few flaws, this might be the game for you. As always, thank you guys so much for checking out this video. If you like what you see, please feel free to drop this one a like. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe. We've got tons of podcasts, reviews, looks at Japanese exclusive games like this, and a whole lot more. Again, this is Danny from the Famicast. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later.
1, 2, 3. 4